Welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Kennedy, and I'm here to help you become the very best version of yourself. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast, here with another solo episode today. We had some really good feedback on the solo episode a few weeks ago where I kind of just went through and answered a bunch of questions on personal development and mindset and gave you some context as to how it relates to me and how I've kind of moved through certain things and the result that that's led to in my life, in my business, relationships, body composition, everything. Feedback was really good. So what we're going to do today is we're going to continue on. We had a bunch of questions that we didn't have time to answer last time. So we're back and we're going to get stuck into the rest of them. We've got the producer here who's going to jump in and ask some of these questions again. So if there's anything that you feel like you really relate to in this episode today, I'd love to hear from you, right? If you feel like someone could value from hearing this episode, someone that you're close to or someone you care about, we'd love for you to share the episode with them or take a screenshot and share it on your social media. Always love to hear and see who is listening to the show, and hopefully you take plenty of value from today's questions, and let's just dive in.
What practices help you stay aligned with abundance instead of slipping back into scarcity thinking?
I think like before we even touch on the practices that allow me to stay in that state of abundance, there's a few things that are really important to understand. Firstly, there's always going to be a contrast, right? Even when we mention things like the law of polarity states for something to be a long way up, it has to be a long way down. For something to be really good, it also has to be really bad to some extent. Now, the beauty of that is that in all scenarios, whatever you feel, whether you feel like a certain situation is really negative and you're in a low frequency, or you feel the exact opposite, particularly when you are in that low frequency and in that negative headspace, there is something incredible about that exact moment or about that exact thing that you are experiencing. And it's just a matter of, are we able to find it? Are we able to allow ourselves to see it? And so when it comes to spending more time in abundance, I think probably much like we spoke about in the previous episode, I think it's important first and foremost to have some daily anchors and non-negotiables that you can really anchor into that allow you to show up in the state that you want to be in. All right, that's one of the most important things. The word that gets thrown around a lot in mindset and personal development for very good reason is gratitude. And it's scientifically proven that you cannot experience a negative emotion while you are feeling or experiencing gratitude. So whether that is a very simple gratitude practice, like in the morning or in the evening, writing in your journal the things that you are genuinely grateful for, whether it is being open and I guess conscious of spreading more positivity throughout your day. I think gratitude is something that's so simple and easy for us to do, yet we just don't do it anywhere near enough. One of the practices or the exercises that I get a lot of my one-to-one clients to do, very, very simple but extremely powerful, is to go and send, and you guys can do this too. Like I would encourage you to at the end of this episode or even now, pause this episode and do this exercise. Send a text message to 3 people that you're extremely grateful for and get detailed. Don't just send a message going like, hey, Danny, grateful for you. Have a good day. Catch you later. Tell them what you're grateful for. Articulate to them what they mean to you and how they add so much value to your life and what you're extremely grateful for. Now, there's 2 sides to this. The first side is that you're going to feel incredible. Like this feels really good to know that you are having this positive impact on someone else, because the person on the other end of that text message is not going to be expecting it. It feels incredible when people express their gratitude for you. And so the flow-on effect is huge. Like one of my favorite books, and again, I provide this to every single client I work with when we first start, is The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. And one of those laws is the law of giving. And think of it like a boomerang, like what you throw out into the universe, right? What you put out into the universe is what is going to come back. And so if you are wanting to experience abundance, it would make sense that you are spreading positivity and tapping into the frequency and the feeling of abundance on a regular basis so you can experience more of it. I think what we also have to lean into is the fact that we have that abundant high frequency feeling available to us at all times, as I mentioned before. And so instead of waiting for something, and this is the biggest fucking trap that people fall into, it's like waiting for a certain external thing to happen, right? In order for you to feel the way that you want to feel. right? And we can all relate to this. I think everyone has thought or said this probably numerous times in their life where you're thinking to yourself, okay, when this thing happens, that's when I'm going to experience abundance. When this thing happens over here, that's when I'm going to make these changes, or that's when I'm going to feel really good. And you spend all this time just waiting. Like, waiting for fucking what? I think there's not enough urgency from most people about going after what it is that they desire most. But at the same time, we're essentially just signing this contract with ourselves of like, hey, I'm not gonna feel these positive emotions until this certain thing happens. Now, you may go and reach that milestone, and guess what? You're the same person, and it feels exactly the same, and it's short-lived. Like, I just got off a call with someone on the way into the studio today who recently purchased a Ferrari, right? The one of the pinnacles of cars, right? In my opinion, for most people who like cars, and the abundant feeling or the fulfillment of purchasing it is very short-lived. And that's not to say you shouldn't do that. By all means, if you are in a position to do so, then, and it's something you're passionate about, do it. I definitely will be. But you can't be relying on that to give you the excitement or to give you the abundance that you're saying that you want. You have to be able to tap into that feeling first. And so if you want to experience abundance and more of it, the number one thing you should be focused on is, can I experience abundance now? Because we are surrounded by it. Everyone is surrounded by abundance. And that's the thing that is often overlooked, right? Now, it may not be to the scale that you desire it to be at. Maybe there are certain levels of growth, success, and abundance that you are currently aligning with and striving for, but there is still so much abundance in your life already, but you're not allowing yourself to see it because you're so concerned with the thing or the outcome or the milestone that you think is going to amplify it. Now, when we talk about energetics and we talk about the law of attraction, I've stated so many times on the pod before that like attracts like. So would it not make sense to you to then go, okay, well, if I'm able to tap into whatever abundance I can tap into right now, that would be the fastest way for me to attract more of it. Same thing with gratitude. When you can spend more time in gratitude, and I don't mean just like, superficial surface level shit. I mean like actual gratitude, like the genuine feeling of gratitude towards something, someone, or to yourself, or just life in general. You become like this magnet. You start attracting these things that are in alignment with that good feeling. So again, common theme amongst the last episode and this one, and all the time talk about mindset and personal development, is that it starts from within. So it starts with you, and that is how you attract more of it. If you're sitting here waiting for something, someone to give it to you, you're going to be fucking waiting for a long time, forever, right? And even when you do receive it or experience it, it will be short-lived. So to answer that question in a much shorter way, I've just spoken for about 10 minutes on it, but having your daily practices such as, for myself, as I mentioned, it is journaling, gratitude, practicing my journal and intentions and desires and whatnot. It's meditation. It's either a cold shower or an ice bath. It's these things that allow you to be in a great state, a high frequency positive state. But then it's also really opening up and allowing, which is probably the right word, allowing yourself to experience the abundance that you already have, right? So if you have a desire for money, then I don't care whether you've got $5 or $5 million in your bank account at the moment. Feel the genuine emotion of gratitude for the abundance that you already have, even if it's $5, because it does not make sense for you to expect to receive more of something that you're not currently grateful for already, right? You have to be grateful, and you have to be able to experience the abundance of what you have in order for you to receive more of it, right? I think I said this thing to someone the other day. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. It's like, imagine if you're with your partner or a friend or whatever, and they cook you dinner, and you've got the plate, and you're sitting there going like, this is shit. Like, this is shit. I wanted way more than this, and this sucks. And at the end of it, you're like, can I have more? They'd be like, what the fuck? You've just spent the last 10 minutes telling me how bad this is, and it wasn't enough, and you didn't like it. Why would I give you more of it? Much the same with whatever your desires are at the moment and the abundance that you want to experience. Experience the abundance first, and you will attract more of it towards yourself.
How do you integrate personal growth into the way you coach, lead, and run your businesses?
Well, personal growth, personal development, self-improvement, whatever you want to refer to it as, I mean, it's part of everyone's life all the time. It's not just something that you can do in certain settings, but not in others. Again, this all ties back into how you're showing up for yourself, right? And the state that you're showing up to your life in at the moment, which then flows on to everyone else. So whether it's, in some form of leadership role, whether it's in business, whether you're a coach, whether it's in your relationships, whether you're an athlete and it's in your sporting or team environment, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. When you're able to show up in this high energy, high frequency state, that is contagious, very much the same as when you walk into a room. Prime example is when a couple walk into a room and everyone in the room knows they've just had an argument. They haven't heard it, but you can just feel it. Like people walk in and instantly you're just like, shit, something's gone down here. Much the same as when there is someone in a room, you may not even know this person. They may not have even said anything yet, but you can just feel their energy. Like they feel like they have great energy and positive energy. That flows on, right? That will flow on to people around you. And so this is also a great way to I guess bring up the fact that it's so important to protect your own energy, right? You have to protect your own energy. You cannot allow, and that's exactly what it is. You're allowing this to happen and it may not be your fault, but again, everything's your responsibility. You cannot allow people or things in your life to continually suck your energy, right? Robin Sharma refers to them as energy vampires, I think he said. But if there's a certain person at work, it could even be a family member, it could be one of your friends, it could be a certain environment that you're in. If you know that person or that environment or that thing brings your energy down, you are responsible for not fucking surrounding yourself with that person or in that environment. Doesn't mean you have to cut them off completely altogether and never, be around it or around that person ever again. But how are you going to show up to your life each day complaining about this shit that is within your control? Now, again, this could be family. It could be the relationship you're in. It could be a colleague at work, a friend, whatever. You need to protect your energy, right? You're responsible for that. And so that may mean in certain friends groups, it's just not getting involved in certain conversations anymore. It may mean really leaning into the standard that you said you wanted to set for yourself when you're around someone who is, tapping into certain behaviors or certain patterns that you just no longer align with or agree with, right? Very simple example is just toxic conversations, judgmental conversations. Like I challenge you to go for the rest of this week without any judgment towards anything or anyone and pick up on it every time you do fall back into that pattern, journal about it at the end of the day or just put it in your journal throughout the day. When you no longer concern yourself with other people and other things that just have nothing to do with you, you will retain and generate so much more energy for yourself. But it works both ways. You're responsible for it. However, it's not your job. And this is one that I actually found challenging when I first started leaning into this personal development work. When you start to experience these changes for yourself, and you're starting to experience this abundance and you're experiencing, the benefits of doing this work, you want to tell everyone. Like you want to fucking help everyone. And it's become, extremely obvious that there are certain people in your life that you feel like you could help. Certain people in your life or people, that you're exposed to that could feel so much better, could be so much happier and live a life of far less resistance if they were open and willing to let go of certain patterns and behaviors. But it's not your responsibility to change anyone. And when the time is right, these people will gravitate towards this work themselves. If you are trying to force it onto someone else, you will just be met with resistance and they will do the exact opposite majority of the time. So what's the best thing that you can do, whether it's as a leader, a business owner, a captain of a sporting team, like whatever, in a relationship, within your family, is lead by example. Keep showing up and doing the work for yourself and showing up in this state and this frequency that rubs off on the people around you to the point where I had this conversation last night on a client call. We were talking about communication and essentially like confrontation. If this is a business deal, if this is a conversation with your partner, in any scenario really, if you're able to maintain your standard, maintain the level of frequency that you said that you wanted to be at, right, and stay up here, if the other person is a really low frequency, right, they're stuck in resistance, they're actually trying to bring you down to their level. That's exactly how it works. Like people who are negative, people who are toxic, people who are, playing the victim, they want everyone else to feel the same as them. And when they're judging other people, it's because they're seeing something in others that they're not doing for themselves. And so it brings out this vulnerability or this insecurity. And the result of that, as I just said, is they will try and bring you down to the same level. Now, if you've got two people at a low frequency, it's a fucking shit show. Like that is where the arguments are going to happen. That's where you're going to clash. That's where the resistance is, and it goes nowhere. Now, are you able to, I've mentioned this before, we've got the stimulus and the response, right? We want stimulus, gap, response, not stimulus and then reaction. If you react, it's most likely going to be low frequency and it's not going to be in alignment with the best self and it'll just go nowhere. However, if you stay up here, like I vividly remember one client in particular who was a school principal, and they were telling me about the fact that they felt like no one liked them, right? Or the parents of the school and staff just always were just rude to them all the time and always taking it out on this person in particular. And so they were like, I'll call a parent and then, they lose their shit or, they're unhappy and it's always kind of directed towards me. And I said, well, how do you start these calls? And they were starting the call off by kind of telling the person on the other end how to respond, essentially kind of going like, look, I know this is probably going to fucking ruin your day, or I know this is going to make you upset, or I'm sure this is going to make you frustrated and disappointed, but blah, blah, blah. Your kid's a little shit. And so the response was exactly that. You kind of just projected onto them your own limiting belief or your own worry, and then now they are just going to mirror that response. And so he was made to feel this way all the time, but guess what? He was responsible for it. So the following week, all we did is I said, you have to stay at this frequency. Now, if this was in a relationship, right, is that hard to do sometimes? Of course. But what's the alternative? You just keep clashing and having more and more resistance and more arguments, or you stay at the higher frequency, you allow them to say what they need to say, you don't react, right? You respond the way that the higher self would, and you just stay up here. You are of no fucking value by dropping down here. So you stay up here and you just allow it to play out. Very quickly, the person at a low frequency is going to feel like an absolute idiot, right? Because they're kind of pushing for this thing that's like there's no value in it. You're staying up here and they're the only ones who are arguing. They're the only ones who are in this low frequency. And it's like, fuck, you look like a dickhead. And so they will naturally raise. They may not get all the way up to where you are, but they will start climbing that ladder. And all of a sudden, they lose all their power and you've maintained yours. And you feel really good. So with this school principal, the following week, I said on all of your calls, do not tell them how they're going to respond. Just talk on the phone like a normal person. Say hello, tell them who it is, ask them how their day is, and then just tell them what you need to tell them. Now, here's the important bit. After you've told them what you need to tell them, shut the fuck up. Just don't say anything. Just allow them to respond or react the way that they are going to naturally. Now, after 1 week, we got back on our call and I asked him, how did the week go? And did you feel like anything was different? And his response was awesome. So he said, out of that week, every single call was fantastic. No, they were all very positive calls, aside from maybe 2 or 3 calls that he'd had where he said the parent had reacted and kind of taken it out on him. However, because he stayed up here, very quickly that same person on the other end turns around and apologizes because it has nothing to do with him, right? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to take that out on you. I'm just having a challenging day, or, it's not the news that I wanted to hear, but it's not towards him. It's not personal. And I think that's a really good lesson to take from this answer, is that nothing is ever personal, right? Like nothing is ever personal. It can be directed at you, but it says more about the person that is directing it at you than it says about you, right? And that's in almost all cases. Like I'm talking, you could have the most direct insult or the most direct thing said towards you that sounds like it is completely about you. And it may be, but deep down, it is about the person saying it, right? It's not even about you. And so if you can let go of judgment, let go of, and detach from taking shit personally, not only will you protect so much more of your energy, but you'll just feel better. You'll just have a fucking much more enjoyable experience of life. So yeah, that was a long answer, but hopefully that one made somewhat sense.
If you could give one piece of advice to your past self starting out in business and personal growth, what would it be?
Very cliche answer, but I wouldn't change anything first and foremost, because I think everything does happen for a reason, and a lot of those challenges and a lot of those opportunities that come up kind of mold you into the person you are today, and so you don't know where you would be without them, even if they were challenging periods of time. And just like anything else, right? Like when you're met with some form of resistance and challenge, that's your opportunity to grow. There's on the other side of that is growth, success, abundance, and progress. So I wouldn't change it. However, if I could give someone else advice to avoid some of the shit that I did, there'd be plenty. I think, from a business perspective, there's a lot. I would have gotten very, very clear much sooner on the perfect type of clientele that I wanted to work with and not try and kind of please everyone. I would have really doubled down on understanding the ins and outs of business and in particular finance that I just didn't have the knowledge on, made a lot of mistakes, spent a lot of unnecessary money, and found myself in some pretty shit positions because I just didn't have the awareness or the knowledge on important things. I also obviously hold a significant amount of value in coaching and mentorship, obviously. But I myself didn't start working with a business coach or a mentor for quite a long period of time. And, for the last probably 5 years, it has been an absolute staple in my life. Like I'm consistently now, working with someone. And I think, a big part of that is that kind of mirrored reality that we talk about. It's like, well, if I'm expecting people to come and invest their time and energy into me to help them, how can I not be doing the same for myself? So I would have leveraged that a lot sooner to try and, collapse time and experience what we refer to as a quantum leap by being able to learn and take all this experience and information from someone who's already done it to then collapse time and allow myself to get to that outcome a lot sooner. I also would have, and it's not necessarily something you can do straight away anyway, particularly if you don't have the capital to do it. But I wore, when we look at working hard or just doing everything, like I just did fucking everything myself. But I wore it like as a badge of honor, as if it was like, you don't get any fucking extra points just for doing it all yourself. At the end of the day, I was trying to strive for a certain outcome and certain results and growth in my business. And I could have got there a shitload sooner if I was willing to delegate certain tasks or, go external, as I said, maybe to a coach or mentor, or, invest time and money into paying someone to do certain elements of the work in my business to allow me to put my time and energy into the things that mattered most so I can grow. And that's, these days I do that. I feel like I do quite a good job of it now. However, for so long, like I said, I wore, working hard and doing everything myself almost as a badge of honor. And it did teach me a lot of great lessons, but it also held me back like so much. And I couldn't really understand that properly until, I had experienced it and, been exposed to different things throughout time. But those things are probably the key areas for the business side of things. And I think with personal development, very much the same. It has all kind of happened the way that it should, the way that it was meant to for me. And I could easily sit here and go, hey, you should have started to lean into mindset and personal development years before you did, right? Like I'm talking 5 to 10 years before I started to really lean into it. However, the lessons that I'd learned from not doing it, some of the shit experiences, a lot of the resistance, a lot of the things that were challenging, is what led me to this path anyway. And so I often look at these things, and again, I just wouldn't change it because I don't know whether if it was different, would I even be in a position I'm in now? If I hadn't experienced all of the failures, setbacks, the resistance, the challenges, the disappointing moments, would I be in a position I'm in now? I don't know. You can't say for certain. So there's not too much I would change, but I would definitely give that advice to others so they don't have to experience certain things that I did. So the business side, touched on that before, obviously with the personal development. My challenge, like to everyone, if you are not doing personal development at the moment at all, firstly, ask yourself why, because if you are avoiding it, that is the most obvious sign that you should be doing it, right? There's something that you're avoiding. There's something you're resistant to, which is why you're not going all in with it. And so that should be more than enough of a sign for you to start to dive into it, right? My challenge to everyone here, and even if you already do personal development work, for the following 7 days, and this should be, in my opinion, every day forever, not just 7 days, but start there. For the next 7 days, spend at least half an hour a day by yourself in complete silence, in nothingness, right? No screens, no books, no phone, no people to speak to. Just sit with your own thoughts. See what comes up, right? And when it comes up, sit in the discomfort. Like allow yourself to process some of these things and become aware and conscious of where your biggest limitations are at the moment, right? Like, what was it on last night's group call, I believe, or maybe it was on a podcast yesterday, I can't remember, but talking about, imagine your car. Would you want to know if your car was about to shit itself and not work, right? Imagine you're about to go on this trip, or you've just got a busy day with work and you really can't be late to certain things. And then out of nowhere, the car just completely shits itself and is undrivable. It's cooked. It's beyond the point of return. And it's not just a quick fix where you can just put air in the tire. Like your car is fucked. Would you not have wanted to know beforehand that there were certain problems with it so you could have avoided the car completely shitting itself? I would hope so. We're no different. We can be avoidant to certain resistance, avoidant to certain limitations that we feel like we have, or experiences that are challenging for us. But what value, like where is the value in that? Is it challenging to move through certain things and certain limiting beliefs and certain resistance that you may have in your life? Yep, it is. It is. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not, because it is. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's exactly how it's meant to be. When you go to the gym, the only way for your physique to change is by providing it with a stimulus that is uncomfortable, that you are not used to, and that is challenging enough for your body to have to adapt, change, grow. If you don't have that element of your training, your body will not change, your physique will not change. Is it easier to just not do the hard shit? Obviously. But, choose your hard. Either way is hard, right? We talk about this all the time. You can keep choosing the comfort, the familiar, the safety now, and you have this prolonged period of an outcome that doesn't light you up and doesn't fulfill you. Or you can do the opposite, lean into the hard things more often. Like, once you start doing a lot of this work, you'll find yourself, it sounds fucking weird when you say it out loud, but you'll find yourself intentionally looking for the hard shit, intentionally looking for the challenging things, because on the other side of that is this growth, is this change in your life, and that's what we're here for. So yeah, my recommendation or my advice would be start where it feels, right or good for you. There's no right or wrong answer. As I've said before, for me, it was reading a book, Greatness Guide by Robin Sharma. It was then, doing a meditation one evening when I was, experiencing a shit ton of anxiety and a lot of stress and resistance, that then gave me this moment or this feeling of peace, which then led to, so much, all of the shit that I'm doing now, to be honest. So start where you feel like, you want to start. There's no right or wrong. And I think if you are experiencing this already, the best thing you can do to help those around you is to show them the byproduct or the result of what you're doing. Show them the benefit of doing the work. right? And they will be able to notice that on you. I can guarantee it. One of the coolest things that, feedback that I get from clients is when people in their life are starting to notice a massive shift. They're asking them, what are you doing different? Like, what's happening with you at the moment? It's like they're just letting go of the old patterns, letting go of the old stories, deciding what it is that they want, taking action in the direction of where that outcome is. And most importantly, as we've said in a previous episode, embodying the frequency of the future self, or embodying the frequency of it already being done and living from the goal, not towards it.
What does success mean to you now? And how has your definition of success evolved over time?
I would say, look, success to me, well, first and foremost, it's setting out to achieve a certain thing or to experience a certain thing. And obviously success is doing it. Success is going out and actually experiencing it. Now, if you look at what the intentions I set as a gauge of success, they have probably changed a little bit, or a lot over the years, right? They have changed a lot. What I don't think, you don't want to kind of bottle yourself up in this certain way where the only way that you feel successful is if you reach this end goal, right? This is going to be something that you're always going to be a work in progress forever. Can you have milestones? Can you have benchmarks? Can you attract and achieve these incredible outcomes? Of course, and that feels great. But if you're not there yet, doesn't mean that you're not successful, right? And what's successful to one person may be the complete opposite to the other person's success, right? For me, it is, I want to wake up every single day and just genuinely be excited and feel fulfillment towards what I get to do in my life. And I genuinely believe that that is the case. I want to be able to have an impact on other people's lives. I want to be able to, leave my mark or, create a legacy or whatever, if that's what you want to refer to it as. But it's just feeling the fulfillment every single day of like the simple things. Now, obviously I've got a number of different businesses, a number of different ventures that I'm kind of on at the moment, whether it be with our supplements, Unify, our coaching, this podcast, still coaching people in person, my relationship, with my beautiful fiance, Danielle. There's just so many different elements, family, like just so much shit. There's so many different elements of life that you can look at and gauge success differently based off each of them. However, I want to be able to just put my head on the pillow each night and know that, one, I'm doing everything that I can to embody the version of myself that I said I wanted to be, right? And I'm not taking shortcuts. I'm not, I'm not trying to take the easy route, essentially. But at the same time, it's just setting certain milestones, certain targets, and following through with it, embodying the version of yourself that has it, taking action on the goals, progressing. And so I feel like you could probably even summarize, what I look at as success right now is, am I progressing? Am I actually making progress in all areas of my life? Not just the business, not just the superficial, surface level stuff, in everything, in my relationships, in my personal growth, finances, business, impact, all across the board. If I am progressing, no matter how large or small that progression looks like, then that's a win. That is success. And that's exactly what I am out to do every single day.
When you find yourself slipping into old patterns or habits, how do you bring yourself back into alignment?
First and foremost, you need to have that self-awareness to recognize these patterns. And without even identifying what the patterns are, you're not going to get there, right? So right from the beginning, it is almost doing a stock take on yourself in your life to understand what these patterns are. What are these repeated patterns that I fall into? What's the undesirable outcome that I find myself in often, right? What is the moments or the behaviors or the patterns that typically bring my frequency super low? And when you have the awareness, it's now a choice. Okay, so beliefs are a decision. Beliefs really are a decision, and it's a choice. So if I know that I have a certain pattern, and if we take this a step further back, I think this is really important. I talked about this briefly on one of the most recent solo pods that I did by myself. The state you're in will determine your perception of everything. Now, I want you to think to yourself right now, if you are aware of certain patterns that and behaviors you fall into that you no longer want them to be part of your identity or part of your personality. How many times when you have fallen back into that pattern were you already in a low frequency first? Okay. How many times when you have fallen back into old patterns, old behaviors, old levels of consciousness and awareness, how many times were you already in a low frequency first? And I can almost bet that it was every single time. Because when you're in a high frequency positive state, you are far less likely to be falling back into old patterns because you are operating as the future self and as the higher self. Now, if I'm in a really low frequency negative headspace, whatever, leaning into resistance, if I'm falling back into old patterns, right? It might be overwhelm, might be comparison, could be a lack of self-belief, whatever that, I guess you could almost call it like the symptom, right? These things are almost symptoms of a low frequency. They are the result of a low frequency. They are the byproduct of a low frequency. So in order for us to change, it starts with awareness, right? What are the patterns? What are the things that I want to change about myself? And when do I usually fall back into them? Is it a trend? Is it when you aren't sleeping enough? Is it when you're around a certain person? Is it on a certain fucking day of the week? Like, how many people almost show up as a different fucking person like almost every day of the week? Okay, whether it's Monday morning, it's just the old pattern of like, oh, I've got to go to work and fucking start of the week again and I can't be bothered and can't wait till Friday. Why? You are, if that is the case, then obviously something needs to change for you in your life, whether it is your job, your relationship, your desires, your health, sleep, something needs to change because you're essentially just saying and not even giving yourself a chance to experience the life you want unless it meets a certain condition or criteria, right? I can only feel good Friday to Sunday. I'm only going to be happy when my business starts making money. I'm only going to feel confident when I have six-pack abs, whatever, fill in the blank. For you to change that pattern, it is going to be hard at the start. It is, because the pattern you're in at the moment didn't just fucking happen overnight. It was something that developed over time. It was a repeated thought. It was a repeated action. It was a repeated focus on a certain belief or a certain belief, that you have, and that's why you've ended up in this cycle. So you can't possibly expect it just overnight, gone. I realize what it is now. I'm going to change it, gone. But you can start working on it and shift it very quickly with a heightened level of awareness. If I have identified a certain pattern or behavior that I no longer want to, be part of me, firstly, it's up to me to be aware of when I fall into it. I also need to understand what's the opposite of it. Like, what is the belief that I do want to lean into? What's the person, the behavior or the pattern that I do want to be, embodying? And when I catch myself out, can I start to understand firstly why I end up in that in the first place? Can I get really clear on what the limiting belief was that even led me to this position in the first place? Okay, so limiting beliefs, as I've said on the show before, typically we adopt a lot of them. They're not even our beliefs. We've just adopted them from others. Or we have put a meaning to something that just was never true. Girlfriend breaks up, boyfriend, whatever, breaks up with you in high school, and now you believe that you're not good enough, or that you're never going to be good enough, or that anytime you express your feelings to someone that they are going to hurt you. Now that is your belief, and you're going to carry that with you until you let go of it and reframe it. Whether you're made to feel stupid, it could be in school. Maybe one day your parents are super busy or having a challenging day and they completely shut you down or make you feel stupid or tell you something and make you feel embarrassed, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, that behavior I can't do because that makes me a bad person, or I should be embarrassed, or I'm silly, I'm stupid, and now it just stays with you. So understand the origin, the starting point of how you even got to this belief or this pattern in the first place, and decide who you need to become to change it. What do you need to be aware of? Am I willing to do the work? Am I able to in every single morning in my journal, can I become really, really aware of what might trip me up for the day? Like, what are the things that may lead to me falling back into the old patterns? Can I be so aware of it so that I don't allow it to happen? Can I be intentional about how I do want to feel and the patterns I do want to be in, to the point where that is at the top of my awareness? Like, I am consciously aware of what it is that I want, not what I don't want, what I do want. So then I'm responsible for it. Am I showing up and am I taking action? Am I doing those things that I said I wanted to do? Because if you're not, how the fuck do you expect things to change? But you can't be disappointed, disheartened, or sit here, start going, oh, this shit just doesn't work, if these patterns keep showing themselves. Because if you've had a pattern for 20, 30 years of your life and you've spent 2 to 3 days trying to change it, it's not going to take 20 to 30 years to unwind and rewire that pattern, but it's also not going to happen overnight. This is almost what it is. It's a subconscious pattern or behavior that you have fallen into that is now kind of just normal for you, normal for your frequency, normal for your consciousness, that you're going to have to do a little bit of work to change it. Again, very similar to body composition. If you've been eating like shit and not training for 12 months, a week or two of training well and eating well, you're not going to wake up looking like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's going to take time. But as you continue to show up for yourself, as you continue to choose the belief or choose the actions that are aligned with the best self, it gets easier, just like anything else. It gets easier the more often you do it. Your confidence is built through action. So hopefully there's some value there in that answer.
What's one lesson you learned the hard way in business or personal growth that you now see as a blessing?
I mean, this is easy. I'm just going to go with the personal growth one, but it ties into everything, business, every aspect of life. I was very avoidant, like I mentioned this earlier, about what not to do, right? This is exactly what I did. I was very avoidant and heavily relied on hard work only. I relied on hard work only. I would just continue to push. I knew that, I had the power to change certain things and no one was going to do the work for me. However, I completely neglected the mental and the mindset aspect of it, to the point where it just all kind of come crashing down. I think it was around 2017, 2018 maybe. It all just come crashing down. I was burning the candle at both ends. I was working harder than ever, training flat out, partying a lot, doing everything at the absolute extreme, aside from anything to do with my mental health. And so it just did reach a point where I was just experiencing a heap of anxiety. I was very unhappy, very unfulfilled, not feeling very out of alignment with the best version of me is probably the best way to put it. I knew that I wasn't showing up as the best version of me, but I just continued to do it almost as a distraction. And then it just finally got to a point where it's just like something needed to change. And so was I aware of the fact that that was probably going to happen? Most likely. But I just ignored it and kept doing it anyway. And so that's, the blessing of that, I guess you could say. Again, I'm not going to say I would change it, because it has led to just so much great, so much good and positivity in my life because of it. But I don't know. I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind throughout that period of time, because again, there was a lot of change, there was a lot of resistance, there was a lot of parts of the old self that were starting to show up again. That was the interesting thing. Like, as I fell out of alignment with the best version of me and with the embodiment and the identity I wanted to be, a lot of the old limiting beliefs started to show up. A lot of the comparison, a lot of the stress, anxiety, worry, fear, all that stuff all started to show up again. But that's when I tried meditation for the first time. I vividly remember, I said this on a podcast yesterday, it was like a Sunday evening or a Sunday afternoon, whatever it was. Very much so, self-inflicted anxiety, stress, all the rest of it. And I was like, shit, I just need to do something about it, because my headspace was fucked. And I meditated. I used the Headspace app for the first time, and the meditation wouldn't have been long. Probably would have been maybe 8 minutes or something like that. But there was a moment in that meditation where I truly did experience like genuine peace, as in all of that stress, all the resistance, the heaviness just disappeared, even just for a brief moment. And from that point onwards, not only did I then double down on starting to lean into doing some of the inner work and learning more about what I could be doing, starting to hold a bit of a mirror up in front of myself and take some responsibility for what I was doing to myself and you know, take some responsibility for the shit show that I'd kind of created. That's what led me down the path of exploring all these other things. You know, went and did Wim Hof workshop one day. So started doing, you know, breath work and cold water exposure and all that stuff. I started reading more books again. I started to take meditation seriously and look at it with just as much of an importance as I was with my physical training. You know, I got completely honest with myself. Like I said, held that mirror up and had to look at the things that I needed to change and improve. That was going to improve my life. I was kind of, again, just not waiting for someone else to do it. I don't know what the fuck I was waiting for, to be honest. But I was just very avoidant to doing the work, right? And as soon as I started doing the work and I started to see things change and I started to feel a lot different, a lot better, I was hooked. And that's when this all started to really ramp up. And that's when I started to take all of this very, very seriously and just prioritize it. That's all it was, is just, you just have to prioritize it, because no one else is going to do it for you. Again, no one is going to do that shit for you. And if you are unhappy in your life, if there's a certain circumstance, if there's a certain part of your life that is no longer aligned or serving you, you have to change it. You have to change it, because no one's going to change it for you. And then you can put all the blame and resentment on everything and everyone else, but you're the only one suffering from it. And so it's a choice, and it's a choice that you have to make, and you will never regret doing the work on yourself.
How do you balance ambition for your future with being present and grateful in the moment?
I think this is very simple, and to some degree we've spoken about this, may have even been in part one of this. It comes down to the embodiment and the frequency of the future self. Ambition and having desires and having this level of growth and abundance that you are wanting to attract into your life, you have to ask yourself, who do I need to become in order for that to be normal? Who do I need to become in order for that to make sense? And so being present in the moment, like, to be honest, I kind of like this question because it almost answers itself, or it's almost the exact opposite of the question, which is what answers it. The desires, the ambition, the future outcomes and the future self, the way we get to that point, right? The way we get there is by leaning into that frequency and the vibration now, leaning into the embodiment of the future self before anything has changed. And to do that, you have to be present. You have to be present. We're talking about the future self, but you become the future self now. That's how it works. So you do have to be present. You do have to be conscious of, who am I being or embodying right now? It's not sitting here daydreaming thinking, okay, well, this is all going to be great. Like, I'm just thinking about this, but at the moment, nothing is the way I want it to be, but it will be at some point. And you're just sitting here, crossing your fingers, closing your eyes, hoping for the best. You're creating your reality and creating your outcome through who you're being right now. Can you be present? Can you be so aware of your vibration, aware of the state you're in every single day? Because you're actively co-creating your reality and your future in this exact fucking moment, like right now. This moment right now while I'm recording this podcast is creating my future outcome. So I know and I understand and I have clarity of what I want my future outcome to be and what it is that I want to experience. And the way that I make that happen is by being that person now. It's letting go of some of those patterns and behaviors and limiting beliefs. And it's starting to just ask yourself the question, those desires and those ambitions, who would I need to be for that to be normal? What would my habits be? What energy would I show up to things with? What would my expectations be? Who would I surround myself with? What would I be spending my time doing? What actions would I take? What would I value and prioritize? What would I let go of? What would I surrender to? these things are all so important because they are collectively creating what happens next. And this is, the term for this is the metaphysical, right? The metaphysical means that we look at certain things that happened or certain, even materialistic, that's what I'm trying to think of. Physical things like matter, right? We look at this and go, oh, that's gonna make me feel like this, or this thing just fucking appeared out of nowhere and now I feel like this, or now these things happen. That is not the case. You know, the physical outcome never comes before the thought and the emotion. It's the opposite way around. The thought and the emotion are creating the physical reality at all times. At all times. So again, your beliefs, your energy, your thoughts, your attention has created whatever you're experiencing right now. As I've said before, not everything in life is going to be your fault. There's many things in life that are not your fault, but you're responsible for it to some extent, if not to 100% extent. Like, if you're not a fan of what your reality looks like at the moment in the physical realm, physical world, it's up to you to then come back over here and go, okay, well, if I know that I created that through my patterns, my habits, my emotions, my energy, my intentions and consciousness, if I created that, then obviously there's something over here I need to fucking change or stop doing to create the outcome that I do want. And you can't do that if you're not present. You can't do that if you aren't really clear on what the desire is and what the ambition is. So it all kind of connects all together. And so much like I've said in this episode, there's elements of this that are difficult and challenging. That is why not everyone fucking does it. But you want to experience love, you have to experience love for yourself first. You want to experience becoming wealthy, you have to feel wealthy first. You want to be someone who is viewed as confident, you have to feel the confidence first. It all is the same, all the same shit. And it's so empowering to know that. On one hand, it can be a little bit scary because you're like, shit, I've created a lot of this stuff that I'm kind of blaming and resenting other people for, but it should be so exciting because it's like, fucking hell, I have the power to go and create these things by based off what I'm feeling and what I'm doing right now. In this exact moment, you're creating the whatever happens next in your life, you're doing it right now. Like, that's how much energy, that's how much power we have to create our own future. You're sitting here looking at everyone else, waiting for someone else to do it or blaming other people because of how shit is for you, but you did that. So if you know that that's the case, would it not make sense for you to get so fucking clear on what it is that you want to experience right now and start experiencing it, even if it's at a smaller scale? Start experiencing it now instead of just putting it off for some time down the track, right? You see it all the time. People talk about what they're going to do in 20 years' time when they've got all this money or when they retire or when they've got the partner or when they've got the great physique. What makes you think that you're going to do it then? Do it now. Like, even if it's at lesser of a degree, because by doing it, you are now attracting more of that to you. You're already living it. And if you're already living it, it's so much easier to get more of it instead of placing this importance on something outside of yourself.
How do you find yourself not stuck in the same negative outcome over and over again?
So this is going to be a good question for us to finish this episode with, and I'm sure I've articulated this to some degree in episodes before. This concept and this framework is going to be so powerful for you guys that, you know, everyone should know this, because this is how you genuinely create like transformational change. The way that we do it, think of it like this. At all times, you're doing one of two things. You're either building the strength of the positive emotion of the future self and the future outcomes, or you're building the strength of the negative emotion of the thing that you do not want and maybe no longer want. Now, I'm going to use a really easy example. We're going to use, you know what, let's use a financial example. We could use body composition. I think I've used that in an episode before. We'll use a finance one. If someone is in debt, okay, they're in financial debt. No one wants to be in financial debt, or, you know, there's good debt and bad debt, but we don't want to be in financial debt. For the person that's going to bring up a pretty negative emotion, obviously. So When this person thinks and speaks about money or speaks about being in debt, it quite literally brings up a physical feeling, brings up an emotion, a negative emotion. Now, if we continue to keep our focus and our energy on this negative thing that we do not want, every time we do that, we are building the strength of this negative emotion. We are quite literally building the strength of the negative emotion towards the outcome we do not want. Now, you're well aware of what you do want, right? You want financial freedom, financial abundance, and obviously to not be in debt. But how much time, if you were to split the amount of your time and energy that you spent on what you don't want in comparison to what you do want, what would that split be? More importantly, if I ask you this question right now, what emotion's stronger? Is the positive emotion of excitement, anticipation, abundance towards the outcome you want, is that stronger, or is the negative emotion stronger? Because in almost all scenarios, particularly when someone feels like they're stuck in the same fucking recurring loop and cycle of just always ending up in the same negative spot that they don't want, whether it is can't stay in a relationship, whether it's can't lose body fat, whether it's being in debt, whatever, end up in the same spot. Majority of your energy and focus is on this thing that you supposedly don't want. Imagine being somewhere, you drive somewhere, you're at this location, you're like, nah, this is shit, I'm leaving, I don't want to be here, I hate this place. As you drive away, you're not even looking at the road, you're staring at the place behind you as you drive away. You're either going to crash or you're going to end up somewhere else that you don't want to be. Why would you look at it if you just said that you don't want to be there? So what does this mean and how do we move through it? We want the awareness and almost acceptance and surrender to what is. Financial debt, okay, that is what it is. Obviously, it's an undesirable outcome. That's it. We know we're in debt, fine. What is it that we do want? Okay, what we do want is this, this, and this. You know, get clear on what it is that you want. Your only fucking job from that point is to spend every bit of your time and energy building the strength of the positive emotion that's attached to where you're going. So wrong example first. If I'm in debt and I'm spending all this time going, okay, well shit, again, this is the energetic side. You're operating from a low frequency, expecting a high frequency outcome, doesn't happen. I'm in this low frequency of stress, worry, anger, frustration, resentment, but I'm taking all these actions hoping to get this positive, high frequency, abundant outcome. It doesn't work like that. So you have to be conscious of your state. So debt over here, I'm not going to be going, oh shit, I got to go and do this, that, and the other because so I can get out of debt. Or I've got to do this so I can get out of debt. Like that is all building this strength of this negative emotion. You're not even really thinking about, you're not even really leaning into the frequency of what you want. You're just fixated on what you don't want. Instead, you be going, okay, cool. Here is where I know I'm going to be. This is the desire. This is what I'm attracting. I'm going to start operating as if it's already happened. I'm going to start learning a new skill. I'm going to start automating more of my finances. I'm going to start to understand more about how to be better with my money. I'm going to essentially increase my income, right? However that looks. And every single day when I'm doing this, I'm taking these actions to build towards being in the financial position that I want to be in. I'm not taking the action so that I'm not in debt anymore. Because as you build towards a positive outcome, the byproduct of you becoming that person and getting to this positive position over here, the byproduct is you getting away from the thing that you didn't want. That is going to happen inevitably on its own. And you didn't even really think about it because you were taking action from a high frequency, from a place of non-resistance. And that is the only way you are going to attract a high frequency, non-resistant outcome. So I hope that you really take that last bit on board because out of this whole episode, I think that's probably the fucking most important part of the whole episode. But hope you guys have enjoyed this episode again. I have thoroughly enjoyed recording it. I kind of like this style of episode for the solo ones. I've enjoyed it. It's been quite good. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and taken value as well. As I said at the beginning of the episode, if you feel like there is someone that you know that would get value from this conversation today, please share this episode with them. If you're not subscribed to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast already, what the fuck you doing? Subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating. Please, that would be incredible. I'd be extremely grateful for that. And I'm just grateful for the fact that you've tuned into this episode. And I really do hope that you have taken some value from today and stuff that you can go and implement and, embody in your own life to start experiencing some of the abundance and the growth that I've been really fortunate enough to experience as well. So appreciate you guys being here. Hope you have an incredible day or evening, whatever time you're listening to this, and I'll speak to you guys in the next episode.